So, I want to welcome everybody. Welcome to the invitation. The invitation is a conversation between discovering, it's a conversation between two friends and discovering what it means to be a human being. And the friends that are having this conversation, I'm one of them. My name is Mike Brown, and I'm a spiritual life coach and an author of the book You Are a Gift to the World. And you can find out more about me by going to my website at changeyourlifecoaching.com. And you can also get a free chapter of my new book at youareagift.com for the book You Are a Gift to the World. And what I do is I help people to turn their blocks into blessings, and then to take the energy of those blessings to propel them forward to manifesting the essence of their heart's desire. So that's who I am. And then there's my very dear, dear friend, Linda. And so, Linda, you want to share with people who you are and what you do?
Hi, my name is Linda Cameron, and I am a life coach and a case manager and a community activist and a fundraiser. And I work in the community helping people get connected to each other and to the world in general. I also provide guided leadership to young people in terms of their self-discovery, and I also stand for people's greatness in whichever way they see fit to have it be expressed. That's pretty much it. I can be reached at LA1 Cameron, that's CAMERON at yahoo.com. And I'm glad to be here.
And we're glad that you are here, Linda. It's a pleasure and an honor to have you here. And so, again, this is the beginning of our podcast. It's called Welcome to the Invitation. And this is our first call, so we're really excited about this. And part of the way that we created this is because of the amazing conversations that me and Linda have. And we created this because we just wanted to share these conversations with people and to have somewhat of a focus and an intention on the conversation. We have that, and then we're just going to open it up and just let it fly so you guys can experience that. So that truly is our gift to you. And so the focus of this particular call, our focus for this call is going to be around purpose. So purpose is the focus of the call. And the intention of this call is to explore the meaning of purpose and create a space through this conversation that you're listening to where your own purpose is uncovered, revealed, and becomes more clear to you. So this call will help to facilitate that knowing that's already inside of you. That's the intention of this call. And so we're going to go ahead and move forward into the conversation. And I'm going to start out this conversation by just asking you, Linda, what is purpose?
Well, I guess the first thing that comes to my mind when I think of purpose, I think of a reason to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that reason differs for different people, also at different points and times in their lives. But I think it's both a uncovering, I think, for some people, and for some people it's a knowing from the moment that they enter into this earthly plane. And they are driven by that knowing. And like I said, for others it's an uncovering.
Right.
And then acceptance and embracing what that reason for being is.
And let me ask you this personally, like for you, what is it for you individually, for yourself? Has your purpose revealed to you early on, or is it something that you're uncovering, or what is it for you?
I think mine was more of an uncovering. And I can actually debate that with myself, but this is not the place. But I think that mine was more of an uncovering. And the reason why I could debate that, because there also, as a child, I had a knowing of myself that I later rejected, only to uncover what I already knew. So that's why I said I could debate that, right? But so I'll just say that what I've uncovered for myself is basically what I said earlier, is that my purpose is really to stand for the greatness of others. And by doing that, of course, I am in touch with my own greatness. And that's what I have come to understand and uncover for myself.
That's what you deliver.
Yes.
Yeah, I totally get that from you. And so maybe you didn't have those words when you were younger. This is what I'm hearing you say. Is that you maybe didn't have those
right.
words.
It's a kind of difficult thing when you're like 6 and the teacher raises your hand and say, what is it that you think you are going to do with your life? And it's kind of when you're 6 or 7 and say, I'm going to stand for other people's greatness. It doesn't really come to mind.
Right.
It took me a long time to even realize that there's a label you can even put on this, Mm-hmm. It's just something that I've always had a feeling of, not necessarily an understanding of.
Yeah. Well, as you're saying that right now, Linda, what comes up for me is I'm wondering if you think that it's that way for all of us, like when we're born, when we're born into the world, that as children, that there is that kind of knowing. Again, not using the words like we say, it's my purpose to be a stand for people. Like we don't have that languaging as children, right? But do you think that purpose is whatever it is for that individual is implanted them upon inception or birth?
I actually think it's literally a part of a person's genetic makeup. It's like if you were born to be tall, it's really not too much you can do about not being tall, or you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. If you were born to be short, whatever. So I think it's part of your genetic makeup. But what the factors I think that impact upon that is being in an environment that nourishes that and helps that to come forward with ease and grace, versus being in an environment where that's not the case, where you quickly have to conform and quickly have to please the adults. And so you look for cues to do that. And so sometimes your own natural calling or voice is maybe pushed aside. And, and I have known people who, I have for an example, one young man who was an artist, like he knew that when he was like 6 or 7 years old. And his mother embraced that, accepted that and embraced that, and really nurtured him in that. And so that came forward completely alive, bursting with color and feeling and voice. And he was able to live that and bring joy to himself and to the people around him.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I think I know this person that you're talking about, and I remember the story about it, if I'm correct, but it had to do with, like, his mother basically, like, let him paint on the walls of his room. And is that
exactly.
Yeah, she just opened it up and just said, go for it.
Right. And she had dreams for him, but she put her dreams aside and embraced his expression.
Wow. So
I
remember you sharing that. Right.
Yeah, she wanted him to be a doctor, actually.
And that's really that's an awesome thing. I mean, I remember you sharing that with me, because I think that what comes up for me is, especially parenting, that a lot of times, because we have our own ideas of what we want our child to be, is to create that space in such a way, like, that she recognized and noticed that her child did that. I don't want to limit parents, but I don't know how many parents are just going to let their child just, like, paint on their wall in their room, to just do that.
And what I call that type of parenting, I call it, Michael, parental leadership. Because you can guide your children into being who they naturally desire to be. Or you can provide parental dictatorship.
Got it. You know, I want to add to that is that I think it's leadership, but it's also followership. Because there's a
and leading is following. And leading is following. This is what is lost upon our understanding and our culture of what leadership is. To be a great leader, you have to first be a great listener. You have to listen. You have to be attentive.
Right.
And then you design your plan based on what you have heard. And so when it comes forward, it is authentic and it rings true for people, and then they follow you. Right? So in the beginning, you are following what they are saying and feeling, and you are hearing and interpreting that.
Yeah, I get that.
And then you're just mirroring back to them through your leadership what you heard.
Yep. Yeah, and that's that example of what that mother did. You know, your friend's mother. That's really that's a brilliant example of that. You know, because she just created that space. She was listening to her son, and he was wanting. You know, something in him was saying, "I want to paint, and I want to paint on the wall." I don't know if that's exactly what he said, but I think the way you told me before, it's like he did want to do that. She said, you know, she had to give something up. You know.
Right, she did. She had to give up having a perfect looking house.
Yes. Yeah, she had to give up.
So she was a smart parent, so she actually gave him a room and say, this is your room. Whenever you feel like you need to color or draw or paint, you come into this room, and every wall in this room belongs to you to do exactly that. And so, you know, there was no need. I mean, so she was getting what she wanted, in a way, was having a house that wasn't, you know, every color of the sun, right? And at the same time, she was giving him a space to express himself. So it was a happy medium there.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I only met this person once, and I had so much respect for her, just listening to her tell her story of who she saw him being, and she had to choose: do I let him be who he's being, or do I force upon him what I really want for him, which is to be a doctor? And so she had to choose, and she had to keep choosing that, she said.
Right.
Which is pretty powerful.
Well, you know what's coming up for me around this, Linda, because, I mean, and I guess we could say that's an ideal situation, right? I mean, obviously that's not everybody's situation where they're parented that way, and I guess what's coming forth for me is that, you know, I'm asking you this question, I wonder this myself all the time, but, like, can a person's purpose really be thwarted? And what I mean by that, like, is that, like, let's say he had another parent, you know, that was just like, no, you can't paint on the wall, you can't do this, you got to go to school, blah, 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 because that happens to a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, I'm wondering if your purpose cannot be fulfilled in that respect, or is it inevitably, is your purpose going to be fulfilled either way, whatever direction you go in? Does that make sense, what I'm asking?
Yeah, that's actually a very good question. I'm thinking, really, that you have to choose you have to choose to be a yes to your purpose, because something is revealed to you is not enough. You then have to choose it and embrace it and then act upon it. So I don't think it's enough to know it, to have it, you know, revealed. I think then you have to accept, embrace, and act upon it, like it is with anything else in life, right?
Right.
And so you have some people who, you know, they wanted to be an artist and they were pushed into being a scientist, so they went into to engineering or something, right? And then, you know, later they retire and then they go back to art.
Right. Or they're bitter and resentful of their parent, and they got to work through all that stuff just to get back to their purpose again, right?
Right. And so there's so many different paths. That's why I say whatever path you take is fine, because there's so many different paths. Some people like, now I'm retired, I can do what I really, really love. I've made the money, I had the respectable career, I've satisfied my parents, et cetera, et cetera. Now I can just be me and do me. And those people retire and they live the next 20 years or 30 years, depending on their health, of course. And they are just happy, just painting, and sometimes they get whole new careers.
Right.
I mean, you think about brilliant writers. I think the lady who wrote Toni Morrison, she became a writer at like she was 40. You know? And so it's so many different paths I think you can take to get, to get to where you want to go. So I think you still have to choose it, though.
No, I totally get that.
Yeah, you can stumble upon it sometimes. I was listening to that guy, his name, Mark, was it Marky Mark? What's his real name? Mark Wahlberg?
Mark Wahlberg? Yeah, Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah. He literally stumbled upon that, on his gift. He had been in prison for beating a man, and because he wanted the man's 2 cases of beer. And he went to court. He pled guilty. I think he was 17 years old, and he was sentenced to prison. And he served his time there, and then when he got out, his big brother picked him up and said, I'm going to make sure that you don't get in trouble. I'm going to make it my job. Okay? And so he took him to a studio with some other friends, and they started, rapping, playing around with some lyrics, like, let's keep him occupied, keep him out of trouble, keep him focused or whatever. He fell in love with the whole thing, and had a hit song right off the bag on his right out of the bag. I think his first CD, and did very well for himself. And lo and behold, Penny Marshall, who was directing movies at the time, saw him and said, this is the kid that I want for this movie. I need a kid who, has this tough exterior, but there's some innocence there. So she called him in and said, hey, blah, 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 I want you to read for this part. And he said, I don't want to be an actor. And she said, what are you talking about? You're acting right now. You're acting like you're a tough guy. You've been acting your whole life, kid. And she said, go out into the lobby, read these lines, practice them, come back and read for this part. She said, just do it for me. So he did. And he said, and from that moment on, he was like, oh my God, this is what I'm supposed to do. And that's what I call a big stumble.
Yeah. Yes.
But he had to say yes, right?
Right.
He could have just, after she said, you're going to read this, blah, 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 he could have just left out of the lobby and got in his car and went home. So in the end, he said yes. And so now he's a director and, big movie maker and all of that. So he's doing what now he says, I realized I was meant to do this. But I never knew that. He said, because there was so much going on in my environment that I couldn't hear anything but noise.
Right. So there's that element of risk that's involved, right? Taking
right.
Risk. Well, the other thing that's coming forward for me is just, and tying it into like, what we do, and I know you see this, with all the people that I worked with and you work with, is that I think that there can be there's this, people are grown, they grow up or whatever, and let's say they're in that situation where like they're told what to do, like you got to go do this, you got to be a lawyer, you got to do, and then there's all this energy around, I have so many clients that I know I've had this experience with where like they did what they didn't want to do, so they didn't feel like that they were at choice. So then a lot of their energy goes around, they made me do it, my parents made me do it, and so that can even become a block for, I think, living more in their purpose, because their energy is just around wanting to make somebody wrong for not doing what they said they wanted to do, as though they couldn't do it now. You know what I'm saying? Like, and so, but here's the thing that, it's going back to choice for me, is like, but I think even at we don't like to think this way, but really I think this is what's happening, because even at a very young age, at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years, we're still choosing. Even then, we're still making choices about, somebody's telling us to do it, and we're saying, yes, we're going to do it, or no, we're not going to do it. I mean, that's what's happening. You know, whatever you want to call it. You're going to be a lawyer. No, I'm not going to be a lawyer. Well, you're going to be a lawyer. Okay, I'm going to be a lawyer. And then they go through that whole process to get to a place where they say, I did all this to my dad or my mom, and I didn't want to do it. And then, you know, a lot of energy can be spent around trying to unravel all that just to get back to, what is it? You know, why are you here? What is it? What's the whole point? What's the purpose?
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, you were talking, you know, earlier, I want to bring this up too as well, because you were talking about your friend who was the artist or whatever, because I think that I was particularly blessed as well, because this is part of, you know, what I'm writing the book about, You Are a Gift to the World, Blessings from My Mom, is that I had a mother like that as well, in particular, because she would say things like that, or she created that space, like, you know, she would say, you are a gift to the world. And, you know, as a kid, I'm like, what is that supposed to mean? Like, she never really directed me to do anything in particular, but she was listening and following me. And it was interesting because I was like looking for leadership. Like I was, you know, there was times I remember this with my mother. Like I would question her in such a way, like I wanted her to tell me what to do, but she just didn't do that. You know, she just didn't say do this or do that. She just would say, you know, you're a gift to the world, or you have talents and you have abilities and potential and capacity that's beyond what you can imagine. Man, that's an extraordinary thing. I know this, you know, hearing that from a parent. I know that's extraordinary now after working with so many people to hold a space like that for somebody like that. It's awesome. But even then, I still had to go through my own choices and you know, I went through my own doubt of, no, I'm not a gift to the world, or what does that mean? Or, you know, I still had to stumble upon my own purpose as well in that process. But I think that she definitely helped to create the conditions for that to occur.
Right.
And, you know, it's interesting that this just occurred to me now as I'm saying this, is that perhaps what's happening is that whatever a parent is doing, whether they're forcing a child to be a lawyer or whatever, is that perhaps that no matter what they're doing, or what their intention is that it's actually creating the conditions for a purpose to be fulfilled either way. You know what I'm saying? Do you get that?
Well, I don't necessarily see that. I don't necessarily see that, no, because I think that often, unfortunately, when we are parenting, we're not thinking about the child.
Right.
We're thinking about ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And by doing that, we value ourselves as parents, quote unquote, but we don't necessarily value the child as a human being.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why children, you know, at 2 or 3, they know pretty much who they are.
Right.
And they are pretty clear. And often what we see is parents rejecting that.
Mm.
Even at 2.
Yeah, and they're clear on what they want too.
Yes, they're very clear, and they don't have any problem expressing it.
No. Like I want that, I don't want that.
Right. And the parents are very clear on, I'm the boss.
Yeah.
And so there's a struggle that's set up very early. But what the child, so the child eventually, you know, because all children, no matter what, they want to please their parents.
Right.
So the child eventually goes the parents' way.
Right.
And so in some ways you can say this is good for society.
Right.
You know, you can make that argument, right?
Right. And
the children.
And let me just say something. I want you to finish what you're saying. Is that, and pose this question as well. Is that because there's individual purpose, right? And then there's a larger purpose that's occurring, that's happening, whether it's in our society, in our
there's
city,
a collective
in our
purpose.
country, or in the entire world as human beings. Right. There's 40 billion years from the beginning. You know, like there's something that's happening that's larger than each of us individually.
Right. There's a collective purpose. I do believe that.
Right.
But also the collective purpose changes.
Right. It
changes, like, you know, according to, you know, to where the individual people are and size of their human development. So it changes. You can say, you know, 50 years ago, we can take the United States, for instance, collectively, the country was in agreement that they were going to discriminate against another group of people for their own financial well-being. So the laws represented that collective agreement.
Right.
And then there was an opposing collective purpose. And that opposing collective purpose was, you know, a smaller number of people, but it still was a collective, you know, opposing purpose. And it countered that collective agreement at that time, and it shifted.
Right.
It caused a shift to occur. And so then the collective purpose shifted, and then we agreed on something else.
Right. But if you go back to the beginning of time of all of history, I think that's always occurring. There's always some collective purpose, and then there's some kind of resistance or dissension of that purpose, right? Because it's not.
That's exactly right. And so
constantly happening.
Right. So collective purpose doesn't necessarily mean that because it's collective, it's right, or it's the way it should. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's blessed, it's divine, or this is the way it's supposed to be. Because you can ask a group of people, say the Native Americans, and they would have an opposing collective purpose against what happened to Turtle Island, which is what the United States was known to by the indigenous people of the land, of this land.
Right.
And so that's why I'm saying that this idea of a collective purpose is there, but there's always the possibility that the collective purpose will be altered and changed by an opposing collective purpose.
Right.
And I think you can kind of see that if you kind of like go through history and look at our development.
Yeah, we could come up with stories. I mean, it's part of the wars, right? I mean, you can look at probably every war. There was one collective purpose, and they're saying no, and they're saying yes to this, and they're saying no to that, and then, I mean, we could go story after story after story. But let's take another step back from that in and of itself. So in that dynamic that's happening, and really we could say this happened as long as we've been human beings, I would imagine, because from the time, whatever it was, from the beginning of time, if we go back to the so-called caveman days, you had a rock, and I didn't have a rock, and I need to get that rock, and so we have a contention, that's playing out over all the time. So if we step back from that, this whole, there's a collective purpose, and then there's a dissenting collective purpose, there must be a purpose in that. You get what I'm saying? In this whole, it's this way. And
yeah, I think you're right, and I think that purpose is evolution. Yeah, and evolution, it appears random.
Right.
But it's probably like random orchestrated chaos, you know? And so I think there's this pull on human beings to evolve, to take one step further into being beings that live from a place of not having to oppose and resist and fight, and you know what I mean? So there's an evolution. There's a physical evolution that we know we've gone through. For the people who accept that, obviously some people don't. And then there's a spiritual evolution. And I think we can look at in terms of who we are collectively spiritually. And I mean, we also can look at an individual spirituality. But I think there is a evolution as we speak going on in terms of energy and in terms of spirit happening right now. And it's moving us in whatever direction. It seems random and chaotic almost, but I do believe that it is a orchestrated type of process. And so it doesn't always look like a clear picture is being formed.
Right. And you know, what we're talking about earlier, that obviously seems to still be playing out, you know, like just in the political arena, you know, where you have the Democrats, you have the Republicans, and so there's this, it's the same type of energetic relationship of everything else. It's like, you know, this way, no, it's not that way, it's this way, and then a predominant one, a predominant energy becomes the way that it is, and it goes back and forth, you know.
Right, exactly. And that's what we are doing right now, is that we are still using brute force and physical power and mental manipulation, and not really examining, is there another way? You know, so we're not, when we talk about politics, okay, I really believe there are certain people who were political spiritual leaders, like you can look at like a Martin Luther King Jr. or Gandhi, or, you know, people like that, who were both political and spiritual leaders.
Right.
So we know that can be done. We know that we can house the political spectrum of what it is to be active in terms of our citizenry. We can house that in terms of a spiritual house, and we can move from that place. And it's a powerful experience when we collectively agree to do that.
Right.
You know, and so we called forward, collectively speaking, our energy called forward a MLK to come to the place.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought those individuals up, because I think that, you know, it could probably be argued, or somebody could say, well, you know, they were just doing the same thing, but there's something, I don't really get that from them, because there's something about what they, like Martin Luther King or Gandhi, what they were doing as individuals. Obviously, you know, it could be said that they were just another opposing force, something else. But in the way that they delivered that, it was actually inclusive of all people. Like that, there was something about the way, like even the forces, the so-called forces that they were opposing, they were considerate of them. They were including them in that. You know, it wasn't like you're the bad guys and we're the good guys, and you're not a part of it. So there's something about the way that they were being. And see, I really want to speak to this too, because I see this happening, is that there was something about the way that they were being where it was like their purpose was beyond any individual purpose that they had. Like their purpose really included everyone, you know. And you know, people might be able to look at, you know, you take Martin Luther King, for instance, and you say, no, his purpose was just for African Americans. But if you really like listen to him and you really study his work, you can see that no, actually his purpose, it was really, you know, it's really embodied in "I Have a Dream" speech, and he was a visionary in that way that that really demonstrated that. So with these particular people, I think what we tend to do is that we look back at them and we reflect upon them, and we say they were special and they were unique, and that I could never do that, or I could never be like that, but the fact that they did do it and they were human beings, really, and this reminds me of this quote, you know, the Marianne Williamson quote, that our deepest fear is not that we're, you know, inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we're powerful beyond measure. It really is. You know, but when we look at the Martin Luther King, you know, and we put all this power into Martin Luther King, all this power, oh, they're so powerful, I can never be that powerful. But the scary thing is that yeah, that potential, yeah, you can be, because you could not, it wouldn't be a possibility unless they had already done it. They made it possible for me and you and for everybody else listening to this call. It is a real possibility that you have that kind of power.
Right.
And that's the scary thing. That's the scary thing, because
that is the scariest thing of it.
And it really, you know what the scary thing about it is that they put their physical lives on the line for that. And we as human beings, we're not readily. It's counterintuitive, or to say, I'm going to put my life. You know, I'm going to put this cause, my life, on the back burner for this higher purpose, for this greater purpose. And they did. That's what they did.
Right.
They basically said, and that's scary. You know, that's scary. That is a frightening thing to do because
that's why I do believe, Mike, that they were called by us,
right,
to represent that which was missing.
Yeah.
That which was occurring as missing to us.
Right.
And they had to say yes.
Yep.
And so they chose to say yes. And Dr. King actually wrote about the sacrifice that he originally said no, by the way.
There's something you have to give up.
Right. When he was chosen originally, he was chosen by Ella T. Baker, who was the leader of the SLC at the time, SLCC. SCLC. She heard him speak, and she told the men of the group. She was, I think, the only female leader, female, and also the leader at that time. She said, "That is the person we need to get to because they were looking for a young person to provide leadership." And she said, "That's him. That's him." And so they went and talked to him, and he said, "No, I just got married. I have a new baby. I'm just working, got my first job. No, my life is just beginning. I don't want to do this." And so they came back and reported to her. His answer was no, and she said, "Nonsense. Go ask him again. This is a calling for his life. This is the person. It has been revealed to me that this is the person that should lead our organization." They asked him again. He said no. So then they asked him if he would at least meet with Ella T. Baker, and he said yes. He met with her. After a conversation with her, he was a yes.
Right.
And she said, "Because I didn't ask him." I told him, "This is your calling and you know it. You can say yes or you can say no, but this is your calling."
Yeah.
And so he became a powerful yes, but he wasn't originally, because there's a lot of sacrifice. And so often we as human beings do not like to make personal sacrifices.
No, and he made
he
the
didn't
biggest
either.
The biggest sacrifice you could make is your life.
Right. And he knew that he would have to put that on the line.
And he did. And it's interesting because now one particular speech that he gave, the day before he died, if you ever listen to that speech, there's such a knowingness. I've been to the mountaintop. It sends shivers through my body listening to it, because it's just like he really was there. Like he was speaking of, I'm not going to be there with you, or he knew that. So he was saying, yeah,
I'm choosing to say yes to this sacrifice.
Yeah. He gave up his life, literally. And so, and I got to tell you, even for myself, when I think about that, I got to be honest, I don't know if I'm willing to give up my life for certain, it's the comforts of life, to give up comfy and cozy existence, my coffee and look, when I'm saying this, I'm not saying that people go out there and give up your life for something, and I am saying that as well, even to myself, because it's that level of commitment, it's that, like you were calling a powerful yes, it's that level of yes. And believe me when I say this, that we all have that potential in us. And whether you're listening to this call and you're saying, no, not me, I don't have it, it's hard to deny it, because of the fact that another human being stood in that the way that they did, it's just an undeniable truth. Because that potential lies in you. You're part of the same species that Martin Luther King and Gandhi was, that did that. So that potential is within you. And obviously the other potential, the other extreme is in you as well. The Hitler potential, or the other extreme of, complete fear. And really I think that part of this has to do with what I would call ego energy, and really what I've come to believe with the ego is is just an attachment to our physical form. Our ego is an attachment to not only our physical thinking, brain, but our physical body. And it's that wanting to live forever and ever and ever.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, I don't want to die. I mean, you can ask, most people don't want to say, hey, I'm ready to die. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I'll commit suicide. But it's that attachment to that
that which we know.
Yeah,
That
exactly.
which
And
we
I mean,
know.
and I tell you, as I speak it now, I feel that. You know, I'm attached to my body and my mind. It is the instrument through which we are communicating right now and speaking.
Mm-hmm.
So you know, to be willing to give that up. You know, there's an extraordinary thing in this. As I'm talking about this right now, that's just occurring from me, Linda, is that whether I choose to give it up or not, it's going away.
Of course it is.
You know what I'm saying? No, that's evident, but it's just an extraordinary sort of thing. You know what I'm saying? Whether I choose to give up this physical, my attachment to my body and my mind or not.
So the question is, you can choose how I will give it up.
Totally. You know, I was in
some people go out and they are miserable and they suffer and they, you know what I mean? And some people say, you know, while I'm here and I'm in this living form, I am going to, you know, exist as if every day is the last day.
Totally.
You can choose that.
You totally can. And, you know, this brings up a conversation that I overheard when I was in the gym the other day, and I heard this conversation that these two men were having about people like living to 100 years old. You know, and like, oh yeah, so and so lived to 100, and this person lived to 100, and the way they were going on and on and on and on about it, like the energy that they were talking about is that it was like a huge accomplishment to live to 100. You know, and I was just like listening to this, and like, yeah, I might live to 100, and they lived to 100, and I just started thinking to myself, I don't really know. I mean, and maybe this is my judgment. You know, I mean, I'm judging or interpreting, but it's like. Is it like that's what I want to accomplish in my life, living to I don't know how much an accomplishment or what a difference that makes in the world. If I could say, hey, I lived to 100, you know, like, because then this brings us to what I would say, you know, what's imbued in purpose is like making a difference in the lives of other people. So, you know, you live to 100, and that's cool, that's great and everything, but, you know, for somebody like Martin Luther King, or, you know, when he passed away, or he was murdered. He was, what, 30-something years old, 28?
I think he was 39.
Right. He didn't live to 100, you know what I'm saying? But so you look at these people like talking about these conversations of living to 100, and then there's this other man that lived to 39. It's apples and oranges, you know, apples and oranges right there.
Right. I think it's you know, there's the physical things, of course. You know, because obviously in order to accomplish a purpose on the planet, you have to be in a physical form, so to speak, right?
Yeah, because it's the instrument. It's the instrument.
Right, the instrument. But the instrument is important, obviously, because if you are, you know, going to actually be a Dr. King, quote unquote, then you have to have an instrument to carry this off, right? And so I think it's important to be in touch with your body and your mind and your soul, and not to put one above the other. I know that probably sounds contradictory to people, but I think we have to think of it as a holistic system.
Yeah.
And that the tool, the physical tool, which is the body, the vehicle, is important. It is a gift to be able to walk, to be able to move, to be able to talk. It is a gift. It is a blessing. It doesn't have to be so. And also that which is your mind, your brain, which the mind is different from the brain, but obviously I think the mind is a part of the brain. But that's the exact same thing. But to be able to think and analyze and to process and to connect dots, that's really important in terms of I think of uncovering your purpose or whatever, and then obviously spiritually connecting to others and listening to that call of leadership and fulfilling. And so, they all work together holistically as a beautiful system. And so sometimes we abuse the body. We drink a lot, we do drugs, we overeat, whatever, without fully understanding that that's the temple in which this purpose will be, carried through. You know what I mean? Or carried on, or by, or forward, or however you want to put it, right?
Right.
And for some people it's more obvious than others. Let's say if you are a Olympic, runner, it's more obvious to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
That your vehicle is going to help you carry out the purpose of, being a champion runner or a world-class athlete. You know what I mean? And for other people, you can kind of forget how important that body is as a temple, and to really honor it, and not to abuse it and be bad to it, neglect it, or ignore it, or disconnect it from it. I mean, because, you may have, engaged with people who were completely disconnected from their own body, and it felt like a strange interaction. Do you relate what I'm saying there?
Yeah. No, I totally get that.
Yeah, and so it's like I think purpose needs every single ingredient in the pot.
Mm. And what are all those ingredients?
I think pretty much what I just said. There's a vehicle, body, physical body part of that. A body that is adored and loved and nurtured and honored in whichever way you can, do it. And then I think a mind that is nurtured and nourished and exercised and all of that. And I think also a spirit, that can literally connect with other energies, other spirits, in a way that it feels affirming for others and for yourself. And I think it's a dance we do with the world, because then the world is the stage, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're out in the middle of the woods, do you even get to know your purpose? I mean, it's like purpose to me, and I could be completely off base here, but purpose often is connected to the world in some way. It could be a way that's, something that people might think, well, that's not really that big of a deal. You're planting trees. So what?
Right. But, one of the things I want to say, Linda, because I know this comes up for me, and I imagine it comes up for you as well, is that I go back and forth with purpose. You probably want to call it purpose or meaning. There's just moments there's just times where I'm like, I feel filled, like my purpose seems so clear, and I feel so fulfilled with it. I'm just like, yeah, I'm on purpose, and this is it. I'm in it. And then there's other times I'm like, in particular this happened, even when my mom passed away, because I had to look at her life, and look at her whole life. I was just I was almost confused. Sometimes I just feel so clear, I know this, and I know purpose, and I know everything. And then, my mom passed away, and I looked at her life, and I got to be honest with you, there's part of me that didn't even believe in death. I knew other people died, but then, when my mom died, and I didn't have anybody close to me die, and I looked at her life, and I went through all her stuff and everything, and I was just I was just confused, man. I was just like, what is the point of it all? You know what I'm saying? It's just it's this dance that happens within me. And I'm imagining it happens with other people, maybe you, and it's where I'm in purpose, or I feel like I'm in my purpose completely, and other times I'm just there's no purpose. This is just like a joke. You know what I'm saying? Like this feel like there's no, it's just empty and meaningless. It's just
right.
whatever.
I think that most people can actually relate to that. I can relate to that as well. There are times when I could care less about a purpose. You know, it has little of no meaning to me. And then there are times when it almost feels like I'm witnessing something sacred. And I feel honored, actually, to even have a slight recognition or understanding of that.
I get that. And maybe, you know, what's occurring to me, or as you said that, is that see, I think what happens for me is that I get caught up in the whole right and wrongness thing. You know, like if I have a purpose and I have a meaning and I know what it is, and it's like, oh, everything's right, everything's perfect. I get it, I understand it all. And then when I'm in that place of like, there is no purpose and none of this makes sense, and I feel frustrated, and it's like, it's all pointless, I want to make that the wrong place to be in. You know, so I'm like, I gotta be back in purpose. I can't be in this place. But I think that maybe being in that place, you know, and I just like I'm present to this right now as I'm saying this, is that being in that place of like no meaning or nothingness or whatever you want to call it, it actually creates the conditions. It creates the space in which purpose can be launched. You know, like it's the integral part of it, rather than, you know, as I'm saying this to you and I'm saying it to myself and whoever's listening, is that, you know, they call it the void or whatever you want to call it, is that like, I think there's a way we can really honor that space and that place and allow ourselves to be in that place where we can create from that place. Like, it's like a canvas. It makes me think of an artist having a blank space. And
from nothing to something.
Exactly. Like, you know, when an artist has a canvas, it's not a purpose or anything. It's just blank nothingness.
Right.
And from that canvas creates the space. It creates the backdrop. It is the whole thing that piece of artwork is being created on. So I'm saying this to say that really to offer encouragement for others who are listening, and I'm encouraging myself as well, is that, you know, to be in a space, to be okay with that, like to allow yourself to be in that space of, you know, it's pointless, it doesn't make sense, it's useless, whatever. If there's a way that you can allow yourself to be with that, with a sort of sense of excitement, you know, and you know, to give you a visual, to conjure up the whole canvas thing, that you're creating a new canvas. And really we're creating new canvases every single minute, every second of every day. You constantly recreate a new canvas in which you can paint whatever you want to paint onto it to create whatever it is that you want to create or give purpose. And you know, what's coming forward to me around this is a quote from Joseph Campbell. Joseph Campbell said that he says, "Life is without meaning. You bring the meaning to it. The meaning of life is whatever you ascribe it to be. Being alive is the meaning."
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's
and that's the beauty of it, actually, because I don't think you can fully even appreciate purpose unless you've felt purposeless.
Right. You're right. It's just like you can't appreciate up unless you've known down.
Right.
You can't appreciate hot unless you've known cold.
And, you know, and often we are an either-or type of thinking.
Right along the or.
Instead of an and.
Yes.
Life is purposeless and, yes, and also meaningful.
Totally. And you know,
can
water.
Really, you can hold both of those spaces.
Right. And I think what we get caught up in, you know.
I think we have to choose.
Right. You know, just to give more of a context for people, because, you know, sometimes these things can become so abstract, you know, to bring it into physical reality. You know, look at something like water. You know, there's hot water and there's cold water. And this is what we do with these sort of things, you know, like we make one right and one wrong. So, you know, you can look at hot water and cold water, and you can say, hot water is bad and cold water is good. But really, it's just the condition that hot water's in, or the condition that cold water's in, that makes it workable or not workable. You know what I'm saying? Not even right or wrong is not the thing, because obviously hot water works well if you're having a hot cup of tea, you know, and hot water doesn't work well if you're pouring it on your skin, you know. And you could say cold water, you know, we want to make it bad or good. You know, cold water is not good, or, you know, cold water is bad if you jump in ice water, and cold water is great if you have it's a hot day out and you have a glass of cold water. And so I'm just using that as a physical representation for that, because I think we do the same sort of thing with...
Right, and then you see how silly it sounds.
Right, exactly.
When if you take something like that and say, you know, cold water is bad, hot water is good, or cold water is evil.
Right, but it's saying that to go along with, because we ascribe these sort of things to, you know, purpose, you know. So, hey, I found my purpose, I have my purpose, so it's all good. You know, I know what it is, and I'm a good person because I know what it is, I'm on my purpose. And then when we're not in that place of not knowing what our purpose is, or thinking that life is purposeless, then we're saying, oh, that's bad, I shouldn't be in this place, I don't want to be here anymore, I shouldn't be here, I need to get over there. And, you know, we just are what we are, and it is what it is.
Hello?
And both of them are useful in that respect.
Right. So another question I would like to throw out there for those who are listening and who care to catch it.
Throw it.
Do you need to know your purpose to have a good life? Can you still live a good life without really uncovering that?
Wow. That's a great question. And, you know, even if as you ask me that one, I mean, I know the way that I think, so I think this way so much. Like, there's a part of me that wants to say, I need to know what my purpose, you know, back to what we were just kind of talking about, like, in order for me to live a good life, I need to know my purpose, because if I don't know it, then it's not going to be good. Like, I have it kind of set up that way. That just occurred to me as you said that to me. But but also at the same time, I think that there's people out there that are fully enjoying their life, and they're doing whatever they're doing, and they're being whoever they're being. They never think about purpose ever. I believe that there's people like that. They just, there's so much in their purpose that they don't even ask the question about it. They're just so in it. You know, they're like the fish in the water, and they're just swimming. And they're just so in their purpose, they don't stop to even ask the question. They're doing it and they're being it at the same time. What do you think about that?
I'm actually of two minds on that one.
Really? You have two minds?
I'm actually on two minds on that one. I really am.
Okay. What is that?
I think it really sort of depends on the person. I think there are people who, they're just fine with that.
Yeah.
They're just, as long as I have food to eat, friends, family, a place to live, and I'm set. And there are other people who say, you know, that's not enough for me. So now, I don't know what makes one person say that's okay with me, another person say that's not enough for me. I need to look deeper. I need to discover more.
Right. Well, see, that first one you were talking about, that sounds like surviving. You know. Go ahead.
Right, but I'm just saying, there are people who will tell you, I've lived a very good life. And my purpose was just to be happy and live a good life. That's it for me. I don't need to feel like I need to be a part of a cause, or I need to make a difference in the world, quote unquote.
Right. Yeah,
I was having a conversation with someone who was telling me this. That's why I brought this question up. And he didn't believe in purpose.
Mm.
He says, I think it's just, you know, what human beings do when they have luxury.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
That their focus can be on that.
Right. Right. Well, yeah. And you know, and we have luxury, you know, so we could sit
we live in a
we can sit here and have this conversation about purpose, but you know, there was a time, and, you know, it's funny, I was in a class I was taking this course the other day, and this was brought up. Something about this was brought up, exactly what you're talking about. There was a time in being human being, you know, when human beings were being, you know, we go back to, let's say, when dinosaurs were around there, during that era, you know, where the way that people lived, they lived so much in, I guess you could say, survival. Like they, you know, if there's a dinosaur there and you reacted, then you ran. Like that was your life, or you went to get food. Like everything, you didn't sit and contemplate your purpose.
Right.
You just didn't do that because you either had to just go and get food, or you had to run, prevent yourself from being food. Right.
Right. Exactly.
Like that was your purpose. You know, like it was the. So in that respect, you know, it's just constantly moving. You weren't sitting around talking about you weren't sitting around talking about, you know, hey, I got a D in school today, Mom. Well, let's sit and have a conversation about that. Boom, there's a dinosaur and you're running, or you know, or you just got to go and get the food. You got to go and you know, till the fields or pick the plants, and you know, your whole day, your whole life is consumed with that.
Right, and it's a powerful, powerful view of the world.
Yeah.
Because the majority of the world lives that way even now.
I know.
There's only a small percentage of human beings who live in luxury.
Yep.
So it really makes you ponder.
Yeah, it really does, man. You're right. There's people on this planet right now, Linda, that...
Yeah, it's the clear majority of people on top of that. It's not just people. It's a clear majority of people who live, you know, on $1 a day or whatever the...
Right. And they're thinking about their whole life and their whole focus.
It's feeding their bellies.
Right. What am I going to eat today? How am I going to get food? And see, now this is an interesting thing, and I really want to bring this to ourselves, because I think that there's something about that because now we're moving back into like
collective purpose.
Collective purpose, totally, because you know, we could say we're fortunate to have been born into the body that we're born in. And, you know, here we are, and we're on this call right now. We have, you know, with this podcast, and we're recording, because, you know, we can do that, right? But that we could have been born somewhere else in another body, and then what we would be doing. I mean, this could be any one of us, really. And I think it's important for us to like really consider that and to step into that. I'm not saying you need to live in that, but step into it. You know, stepping into another man's shoes and consider that you could be one of these human beings. You could have been one of these human beings on the planet that's in that condition where you're not listening to this conversation right now. You're not having this conversation. Your conversation is what am I going to eat today?
Right.
You know, to really consider that. You know what else this brings up for me, Linda, is because, and I just got to say this because I hear this a lot, and I'm like, you know, I think it myself sometimes, you know, around like, you know, when people wanting to be a millionaire, you know, I want to be a billionaire, right? You know, I have a friend of mine, and he said to me that, you know, he wants to be a billionaire. And I was like, that's cool, you know, and I don't want, you know, whoever listens, I don't want to take anything, like part of what I do as a coach, I want you to have what you want to have, you know. I I want you to be a billionaire, a millionaire, or whatever. But something just occurred to me when he said that to me. And I started thinking to myself, and I asked him this question. I said, hey, man, cool, be a billionaire, go for it, man. But I want you to imagine this. Imagine if an alien came from outer space, okay? They don't know anything about the planet Earth. They don't know nothing about it, what we do. You know, just get yourself in that mind frame. Aliens coming from outer space, and they go all the way around the world, and they look at everything that's happening on the planet. You know, they look at the people who have whatever they have, the wealth of the billions of dollars, and they look at there's 20,000 children who die every day of starvation. Just looking at the whole planet, they travel around it in 10 minutes, and they see everything and everyone that's happening on this planet. And I asked him, I said, do you think that alien would say, what this planet needs is another billionaire?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if it just had one more billionaire, then it would work. Like, the planet would work, and everybody would prosper and be happy, and it would really serve the planet. And all the people were like, do you think that would be it? And my friend was kind of like puzzled by it. And he was like, you know, he's just, you know what I'm saying? And again, I'm not trying to take anything away from you, bro. You know, we have billionaires on the planet. Obviously, we have them.
Mm-hmm.
They're here already. You know, we got it. I don't know how many we have. You know, I don't know if there's 100 of them or whatever. But, you know, what is one more billionaire going to really do? I don't know. And I'm glad, you know, I brought this up about the billionaires, because there's actually a few billionaires who are doing some, actually, what I consider to be an extraordinary movement, which is Bill Gates and Warren Buffett. And over the past year, they are rallying other billionaires on the planet. Like, they're seeing something. Like, I think that these men are seeing something and calling forth other billionaires, and they've been having these meetings. And this is a campaign. They're on it. And what they're suggesting to other billionaires is to donate, or to give up the rest, to give up half of their billions, to donate it to charitable causes throughout the world that they're choosing. You know, and their intention is not to direct it to any particular organization. They're just saying this is like for the highest good, for the greater cause. They're seeing something in that. A few people having $1 billion and a lot of people starving, or, you know, like they're seeing something. So they're and they're not saying give up all of it, you know. Mm-hmm. If you have $2 billion, you know, donate $1 billion and distribute it to the masses in such a way that it benefits the greater cause. And I think it's an extraordinary cause, an extraordinary movement. And, you know, I don't know what it takes. I haven't been a billionaire, but, you know, what it takes to, because, you know, I've heard things, you know, that you have more money, it's more difficult to lose it or give it up or whatever, that sort of thing. But they're doing it, you know, and it doesn't look like it's something they're just doing. I just read this article about it recently, so they're not just doing this. It's like, they're committed to this. Like, this is what they're, you know, they're having the meetings and they're talking the talk, and obviously they're walking the walk, because they're doing it by leading by example.
And I'd like to throw this out, that we have called them forward.
Absolutely.
Our collective energies, because this has been discussed for at least 50 years, and I'm sure I'm probably way off on that, about how do we eradicate poverty? How do we solve the issues around food and food insecurities?
Right.
And so that has been in our consciousness, and we have been examining it and analyzing it to death, some would say. And so, and I think that energy has called forward these people, and they are answering the call. They are saying yes.
Yeah.
It's because I say often I think we are disconnected from the action of others,
right,
because we don't recognize our own powerful, energetic connection to the other.
Yes, that's right. And money can have that phenomenal effect in that respect, that it can make us seem, money is an interesting thing because it can create some sort of artificial disconnection from other human beings.
Right.
No matter how you cut it, your billions or billions of dollars, your billions of dollars will not mean anything without other people. Exactly. It won't be. And I've told people this over and over and over again. Some people have a hard time grasping it, but it's just like, if I put you on an island and you have millions and billions of dollars there,
and there's no one else on that island,
it's not going to do anything for you. You might be able to earn it and keep warm with it, but really the value of money has to do with our mutual collective agreement that it's valuable. Exactly. That is the sole value of paper or money. It is.
Yeah, and so does poverty. We collectively agree that some people should be poor.
Right. Yeah, it is an agreement. It is an agreement. And, I want to speak to that more clearly and say, as we're having this conversation, that, if you're listening to this, and you're listening to this because really we're calling you to something that's inherent in your DNA. It is a higher calling, not just for me and not just for Linda, but for you, for whoever, for the entire planet. And if you're listening through guilt, then that's not really workable. Guilt is not a workable thing because I think sometimes, and I've done it myself. Sometimes you hear this and you're like, oh, I feel so bad. I'm not giving to the poor, and I really should do that. And if this kind of conversation is happening in your head, it's fine that it's there. I'm not trying to make it go away. If it's there, just notice that it's there. It's cool. If it's there, it's there. But here's the thing: is that my purpose, and I want to share my own individual purpose, and this recently came forward for me, is to create a world where everybody wins. Where everybody wins. And so consider the possibility that, you can have what you want to have. I'm not saying don't go for your dreams and just throw all your dreams away. Or, if you want to be a musician or an artist or whatever it is that you want to, whatever it is that you want to manifest in this world. Because I really believe that it's possible for you to manifest what you want to manifest in a way that you have that individual purpose fulfilled. And there's also a way that the greater purpose can be fulfilled in that same context, so that that people can have their basic needs met and be fed and clothed. Those things can exist together, people. They can. So I don't want you to. I'm offering this to you to say, just to consider this as a possibility that we're not asking this. We're not asking you to throw away your dream, for the higher good. And to consider the possibility that your dream is a part of that. It's funny I'm saying dream because it brings me back to, Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech. And we all know what that dream was. And really, I really, really believe this in my heart, is that whether you believe this or not, or you say you agree with it, I'm not putting this on you, is that ultimately there's something in the speaking of the way that he said that I think that is a collective dream that we have. To be able to be together that way as human beings all over the planet, for what he was speaking of. He was really talking about all of us.
Right. Like, he speaks of a beloved community.
Yes, yes. And that, and listen, everybody, this is a very, very, very possible reality. It really is. Some people might hear that and they say, no, that's not possible. Like, it is. And I'm going to tell you why it is, because we have all the resources. Like, we have everything is here. It's here. It exists in physical reality for that to actually occur. There is enough resources. There is enough food. There's enough money. There's more than enough of everything to go around for everybody, probably 100 times over. It's here, people. It's right here.
And I'm glad you said that, Mike, because there's the director of the the Eradicate Hunger program, Bread for the World, he actually stated that when people say we have food, a lack of food, not enough to go around, and he said actually that's not true.
No.
That there's no real food insecurity in the world. He said what we have is some places hoarding, holding, and controlling the resources.
Right.
Therefore causing poverty, hunger, depravity.
That's right. There's abundance of there is an abundance of food. If you watch the movie Food Inc., you know that for sure. There's an abundance of corn.
Yeah, this is all.
There's a massive abundance of corn that exists that could probably feed the world, 10 times over.
Right.
It's there. It's already there. It's already in reality. It's not like somebody you have to give up your food or your meal. I think sometimes people think in these extremes, like, well, if I do that, then if this happens, then we start to think in terms of a scarcity mentality, like there's only enough to go around, and it's just not there. But that's just not the way that it is, people. It is all here. It's all here, and there's more than enough of all of it.
So then we collectively have to think of a possibility of creating. Well, we don't have to. We get to choose.
That's right. We don't have to.
We don't have to. We can choose. What would it be like if we actually created a world which reflected abundance and not lack?
Yeah. Well, we all
what
win.
Would that, what would that look like? How would that show up? How would I individually show up in that?
Yes.
How would you, Mike, individually show up as that?
Yeah, and how would you listening to this call? What would that look like? How would you show up in that? And I want to hear responses from people on what that would be. You can respond to that through the page. We'll probably have this on Facebook, and you can respond through that or through the website that we have. And we want to hear your answers on what that is, because really, this is something that we can choose to do together. Like you were saying, we don't have to do this together, but we have to. I think that
we can just
consider
the possibility.
Yeah, and if it hasn't become clear on this call, it's clearer to me. I'm having an own uncovering of my own that clearly it's possible for us to do this individually, because we have examples of that, like the Martin Luther King, we can do that individually, because somebody, if another human did whatever they did, obviously that potential exists within you. And we can do it collectively, because I think that, I think what we're moving towards is being like a collective type of being, the way those beings were, like the Martin Luther Kings and the Gandhis. We're moving to where it's not just going to be, one person leading the charge. It's going to be collective leaders.
Right. And really it always has been. It was just that the media likes to pick one person to focus on. But there were many people with Martin Luther King Jr. on a daily basis. There were many before him as well, which, created a space for him to even walk in.
Yes, totally.
But often the media picks one person to focus on, and so the story goes. But you don't cause huge change by being one person. You cause huge change by connecting to millions of people and mirroring those people's desires and possibilities.
Yes.
And you never walk alone.
Yep.
You never saw Dr. Martin Luther King walking alone in any of these pictures.
No.
No.
No. And I just want to say this, that even when you are having the experience of walking alone, or you're thinking
you never
that you're
walk alone,
you're still not walking alone, because you are part of the collective.
Right. You're not walking alone. If you have a house, quote unquote, that's made out of bricks and mortars and wood, then you are not alone. If you're eating food that was grown by people's hands and harvested and driven by people who, drove trucks, you are not alone.
That's right.
People are touching your lives in many different ways.
That's right. When you go to the grocery store, you get those groceries and you use see, that's the thing about money. You can create that artificial separation. You think, I paid my money for this. But there's people who brought that food there. There's people who grew that food. There's people who packaged that.
So you are not alone.
Yeah. I lose sight of that myself. I think I'm going to the grocery store, I'm getting my food, I'm paying my money, that's it, I'm done, see you later. But that's not the way that it really is in reality. The way it is in reality is that you are part of the collective of the group of human beings, and you just can't get away from it. You can go live on a desert, you can live on an island, but you're still a part of it. You can sit in your room by yourself and be all alone and think, I'm so alone and I'm lonely. And, I've done that myself. But you're not. It's just not true. You're not alone. You can have that.
And so, I guess, Mike, to look at maybe some possible suggestions for people who are searching for their purpose.
Yes.
And who are looking to uncover it, and who even might feel lost because they feel
alone.
Yeah, because they feel disconnected from their purpose.
Yeah.
And they're questioning, why am I here? So, some suggestions I would have is to begin by asking yourself, what is your deepest value? And write those down.
Yeah. And what I want to add to that, what is your deepest value, but also what is your deepest passion or desire? What is driving you? There's something inside of you that's moving you, that gets you out
and
of
these two
bed.
things are very connected. Your values and your deepest dreams are often connected.
They're very connected. And write those things down. Make a list of those things. What's compelling you? What's moving you? What's driving you? Because and keep in mind when you're writing these things down, because they're really inseparable. We like to think that they're separated, but they're not. But there's that individual thing that, well, I'm compelled to be an artist, or I'm compelled to be an author, compelled to be a speaker. And then there's a collective pool that you're a part of, that we're wanting to call you the presence in your own life. And write that down too as well.
And I'd like to throw out a few examples, Mike, if I can, of what values look like or show up as in your life.
Yeah.
Just so people can have a clear picture. Beauty could be a highest value, which is sometimes connected to art, sometimes connected to nature. Family could be of value. Leadership could be of value.
Yes.
Service could be of value. Adventure could even be of value.
Yeah.
So you want to just create a list of values. And then from that list of values, you can start moving toward which of these things point in the direction of a desire.
Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes that it can cause you to just go on and on and on. So you might have to cut yourself off and say, I'm going to give myself 10. Write down 10. At least 10, right? And see if you can work with that number. And it doesn't have to be 10, obviously. You could say 5.
Yeah. And then in terms of like the thing that's driving you, or I guess you could say your passion or your dream, or there's a couple different things you call it. The thing that's driving you, your passion, what's moving you, what's really propelling you. You know, it could be. And again, we're not saying this is what it is for you, but just to give you some ideas of what that might be or what that might look like. It could be something like working with children. You know, you might even not know the form of that, but you just feel that in you. You know, it's just present with you. You might not be doing it, but it's like, yeah, I just want to work with children. I want to impact children. It could be working with elderly people. You know.
Right.
Again, you don't need to get too connected to the form. That'll come forward, but just get present to. There's something there, or it could be working. Do you have another one, Linda, that comes to your mind? Like,
I think that one that often comes to my mind. There are people who are creative and artistic,
right.
But they deny themselves that.
Yes.
Because they say that's not practical.
Right.
Dreams are not meant to be practical, people.
No. So it could be being a musician, you know, singing.
So dreams in itself is not a practical term.
Mm-hmm.
It is the opposite of that. So there's the dream, and then there's the manifestation of that dream.
Right.
But when you're brainstorming the dream, throw away the word practical and sensible and logical. Throw it away. Because that's not in the world of dream. Those words don't exist in the world of dream.
Yeah. Yeah. And here's another thing I want to throw in there a minute, is that when you think of your dream, like a lot of times people think of their dream, and I'm going to give you a real concrete example of this, is that, you know, you might say, you know, it's my dream to have a house, or it's my dream to have a car, it's my dream, you know, and that's fine. Follow that line, you know, follow that line. But there's always something behind that. There's always something underneath that. I'll give you an example. So, like, it's my dream to write a book. I'm writing a book and to be an author. And I could say that's a dream. But then what's underneath that? Like, what is my intention? Why do I want to be an author? It's because I want to impact and I want to touch people. I want to have an impact on other people's lives in a way that improves their lives. So when you say I have a dream and my dream is to have a house, like a lot of people will say that to me sometimes. That's cool. Follow that line. What's underneath that? When you get the house, you know, when you get that house, what's that going to really give you, or what are you going to create in that house? Yeah, what is that going to give you, and what is it going to create? What do you really want to create in that? You want to create a home, or you want to have a family, you want to nurture a family.
Right.
I'm not saying that's what it is for you, but there's something underneath. Because it's not. Sometimes we think it's about the thing itself. You know, that once I have the house, then I'll just go and sit in it. You're not just going to go and sit in a house and just sit there.
Right.
Something's going to happen in that house. You get that? A house is a space. You're going to have parties there, or you're going to have friends over, or you're going to have a family, or there's something that's going to be inside of that, or what, you know.
Right. What is going to be possible?
Exactly. So if you're starting to talk about
having that house or that home makes what possible for you?
Right. And it's like that with anything that you might think of that you want. You know, even because like people say, oh, I want a boyfriend, or I want a girlfriend, I want a husband, and follow that line. So then when you get that, then what do you really want to create? And so underneath that is might be something like, you know, I want to be really intimate with somebody. I want to be in a deep connection where I want to be with a human being in such a way that we share our lives together and we go and play together. That's what's underneath wanting to be with a person. And so, you know, we're just saying this to you to say, follow the line of whatever the object is, you know, a house, car, person, whatever. Get to the deeper underlying thing that's driving you. Because it's there. It's there. It's there in all of us. It's in all of us as human beings. And as you question that and you get deeper and more in touch with that, then you'll find yourself being automatically moving in that direction. As you present that, you will just start to move in it. And believe me, whatever that is, it is part of the higher purpose. Your individual purpose is part of a collective purpose. It can be set up that way, ladies and gentlemen. It can be set up that way where there's a win-win. Where you get what you want, I get what I want, let me get what you want. The world, people in the world get what they want. And this is not altruistic thinking. As I said before, it's all there. It's all available to us in physical reality.
And honestly, I have to say that I think that at some point there will be a paradigm shift. And we will get that in a very powerful way that only we can exist. I cannot exist. And the world, the physical world, the material world, the spiritual world, that for us to have these worlds work for us, that we have to realize at some point, or I don't think we have to, I think it's going to happen. I think that the shift has started, to be honest, that we're realizing now that we have to be connected to the earth, to the physical world, in a way that we don't use the earth as an ATM machine. But that we actually use it as a sacred place. And we experience it as a sacred place, and we see it as a sacred place, and we hear it as a sacred place. Like, I truly see that paradigm shift is occurring. Like, we have collectively agreed, and it is coming forward more and more every day.
It totally is. I just want to add to what you said about the earth being as a sacred place. It's reminding me of the analogy we were using earlier, and I'm just like presencing this right now. It's really like the canvas for human beings. We were talking earlier about the canvas painting. The planet Earth it's a canvas. It's that place where human beings can do their thing, to create we're co-creating a sort of a painting, being co-created in the way that we're being and living our lives together. It's totally that. It's a shift for me. In this conversation right here, I'm having my own shift in seeing it that way. And by the way, you expressed it as well. And thank you for that.
Thank you.
And I want to, and I know this is going to be very difficult for you all out there, and it's going to be difficult for me because, as you know, me and Linda could go on forever and ever and ever and of eternity, solving all the problems of the world. Because that's what we do. And we're just sharing that with you here. So, but, we're a little bit, and if you're still with us, and I imagine you are, and we're at about an hour and 40 minutes right now, so I think this is going to be a good time right here to bring this call to a close. But the conversation never really stops. The conversation is going to be ongoing, and
right.
We want to hear your responses and your comments, and
I'd like to end with a provocative statement, if I could.
A provocative statement. I've never known you to be provocative, but go for it.
Yes. I guess you could call it a provocative thought or question.
Okay.
If the end was near, what would you regret not fully doing, being, or having in your life?
Yeah. And let me add to that and say, if the end, and by the way, I'm imagining if you say it in like the end of the world or whatever, but your life, as you know it, will come to an end. I mean, you know, we all know this. So I want to add to that and get you really present is that, put yourself in a place where the end of your life is near. Let's say you live a long and healthy life. You live to 99. Put yourself in that energy. You're 99 years old. You did it all. You did, I don't know what you did. But just getting yourself in a place of like your deathbed. It's on your death. The end of your life is about to end. Because we're all gonna be there one day. And just get present to that. Let yourself be in that space for a little bit, and then ask yourself that same question:
What would you regret not fully doing, being, or having? Because whatever that is, your purpose is right behind that question, that answer.
Yes. Beautiful.
All right,
share
Michael.
that with us. We want to hear it. And so, real quick, just to trying to wrap this up on the end, is that I want to go back to letting you know again. My name is Michael Brown. The name of our podcast, the name of this show is called Welcome to the Invitation. It's Welcome to the Invitation, and this is a conversation between me and Linda. We're very good friends. We're sharing that conversation with you to discover what it means to be a human being. And this conversation will obviously pick up and continue and keep going on with other calls we have. And my name is Mike Brown, and I'm a spiritual life coach. And what I do is I help people to turn blocks into blessings, and then to take the energy of those blessings to propel them forward to manifesting the essence of their heart's desire. And that's what I do. And you can connect with me and find out more about me by going to my website at changeyourlifecoaching.com. And you can also read the first chapter of my book that I've been writing. It's going to be out soon. And that book is You Are a Gift to the World. You can go to youareagift.com and download a free copy of that and check out that book and tell me how you think about that as well. So that's me, and that's what I do, and how you can get in contact with me. So thank you so much. And go ahead, Linda.
Thank you all for being a part of this conversation, and thank you, Mike, for the opportunity to be here with you. I really, really appreciate it. We have been friends for a long time, and I think this is an awesome experience to share with other people, our connection.
Mm-hmm.
And with that said, I'd like to just end by saying that my name is Linda Cameron again, and I can be reached at LA1 Cameron@yahoo.com. Cameron is spelled Cameron, and I am a life coach and community activist and fundraiser, and I provide guided leadership to youth. And I look forward to hearing from you.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to add to that, Linda didn't mention this, but she's also a life coach. She also specializes in life coaching parents as well. So if you're a parent and you want some coaching around how to parent your children, that is something that she is very, very, very good at. So I just wanted to throw that in there as well.
Thanks, hon.
You're welcome. So, okay. Take care, everybody.
All right. Goodbye.
Okay. Bye, Linda.
Bye-bye.